What's up guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you're doing good. I just wanted to make a quick video about some of the latest Valheim news. Irongate recently posted this development blog, basically showing you what's coming after Hearth and Home, and they talk about some really cool looking ice caverns in the mountain. So let's just jump into their post. Hello everyone, time flies and it's already been a little over a month since we released Hearth and Home. It's been very inspiring to see how everyone is using the new building pieces to make even more creative things than before, and your reactions upon discovering the new stuff have been so much fun, especially the things we made into a bit of a surprise, like the locks riding. Releasing Hearth and Home was a big milestone for us, as it was our first big update, and it feels really nice to have finally gotten to share that with you. There are always more bug fixes and balance adjustments that can and will be made, but we have also begun looking at things for future updates, this time focusing more on adventure and exploration than on building. Those of you who follow Richard on Twitter might have noticed that he's experimenting with the terrain and textures for Mistlands, which will be our next biome update. However, please keep in mind that this is not a final version, and that the landscape will likely change quite a bit before we figure out just exactly what Mistlands will look like. It's also too early to say what the implementation of the Mistlands will mean for your existing worlds. We will keep you updated once we know more. There's not really much to say about this. It's kind of interesting to me how much different this little image is. I will put a link in the description as well to the actual articles, so you guys can actually take a look at these images for yourself. But I do think it's actually interesting how different this is to the existing Mistlands. Obviously, this is probably not what it's going to look like. They're kind of clarifying that they're still experimenting and still working on it, right? But what I mean is, I kind of was under the impression that Mistlands was kind of gonna look like what it looks like now, but they were just gonna add to it. This would make it seem like, at least, they're actually not going to do that, and that what Mistlands is going to look like is going to dramatically change, which actually really excites me, because, you know, it would be cool if they just release a Mistlands update and they do just add to the existing thing. That, like, I am fine with that, but it'll be even more fun if it looks completely different, because then it's just more of a surprise and it's not something we've already seen a million times, you know what I mean? So that's cool. While the groundwork for the Mistlands is being done, some of us are having a look at smaller updates. A biome update takes quite a while to develop, and like we've mentioned before, we also want to offer you some smaller updates before that. Currently, our dungeon master, Eric, is teaming up with the art department to work on something to make the mountains a bit more interesting, especially for those of you who love to explore new places. There is no final version of what this will look like yet either, but we thought we'd show you some concept art to convey the general feeling. So, obviously, concept art is never actually what the final thing looks like. Artists will make something that captures the vibe of the area, the sort of general feel of the area that the designers want it to have, and then that gets given to people to actually make that real, so it won't actually necessarily look exactly like this. Having said that, the vibe of these images looks really cool. They look like really cozy little caves, and then there's this huge like ice wolf statue here, which again, even if this isn't in there, this would kind of suggest that there is going to be some kind of like statues in here, which, you know, one would assume that these things either do something or they are just part of like a more populated dungeon, which would mean that you would assume some other kind of content in here than just this. Because I would kind of argue that if this is the only thing inside here, then it has to do something, or it's not the only other thing inside here, if you know what I mean. Like, it could be, there could be many things inside here, which means there's going to be, you know, many things potentially to find and explore, kind of more like burial chambers or something. So that looks super cool. Anyway, they just wrap it up by saying, we hope you haven't missed that we're now able to craft jack-o'-lanterns, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm sure everybody knows that, but that is basically it. I want to wrap up this conversation quickly by just saying, overall, this is really exciting to me that they're actually planning on adding dungeons to mountains, because the more dungeons that you have to explore in the game, it's not necessarily about how much content any one dungeon adds. To me, it's kind of more about when the game gets to 1.0 and it's all finished, how much content all the dungeons add up to be. Because in my opinion, when you do a casual playthrough of this game, even though the swamps can be really frustrating, some of the better kind of designed content is actually going from meadows and then to Black Forest and getting your first burial chamber. All that content of just exploring the burial chambers until you've got everything you need, and then finding the swamps and kind of doing the same thing with crypts, and the crypts requiring a key. Just the fact that they require a key from a boss that actually physically locks you from going in until you do that boss. That to me is some of the better designed content in the game. And, you know, I kind of like grind for iron. I like that there's an ore in there to craft with. So I'm not saying that's necessarily what's going to happen with this, but it is obviously a possibility. And, you know, if every biome in Valheim had dungeons, that would actually be quite a lot of content. And content is really what many of us want from this game. So anyway, I think this is really awesome. It sounds really cool. And the other thing to note as well before I go, for anybody that doesn't know, this does confirm that there's going to be an update coming before Mistlands that is actually content and not just cosmetics and food and new items. So that in itself is exciting, because that means that we can expect some cool new content much sooner. That's just about going to do it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and a nice positive comment and subscribe for future content. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, have a good one.